Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's video. So today we will be working on week 7 of the National Quilter Circle free quilt along. Okay, this is going to be a little bit long video because there is a lot to do today. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I need you to do is to print off your instructions for this week. When you're looking at the instructions, don't be overwhelmed. I know there is a lot of stuff in this week's instructions. It almost seems like it should have been maybe broke down into 2 weeks. But let's just go through it one step at a time and we can get this quilt accomplished, okay? So don't be overwhelmed. We're going to take it one unit at a time, okay? Okay, so what I want you to do after you print it off, I want you to get out all of the units that we made in the previous weeks. Just set them all out like I did, kind of sort them. And then let's start on our first block. Our first block is going to be the shoe fly block. Okay, so the first block we're going to work on today is the shoe fly block. We've already made the units for this, so let's just pull out our units so that we have enough for the 12 blocks. Okay, so I have all of the units I need for my shoe fly block. Now we are going to have some extra units that are the half square triangle with the square of the background and then the half square triangle. You'll have some extras of those. You won't be making shoe fly blocks with all of those, okay? Those extras will be in our borders. We'll have 4 sides to put a border on. So what I want you to do is to look through. I sorted mine by color so I can get a good assortment in the blocks and then a good assortment in my borders. Okay, so mine is going to be totally scrappy. So all of the units that are the background square and then the colored square and then the background square, those all will be used in our shoe fly blocks. We're going to put 12 of those together. Okay, so once you have your units sorted to how you want your blocks to look, what we're going to do is take these to the sewing machine and sew them all together, okay? We need 12 of these blocks. Okay, so now we're ready to start our next block, our V star block. That's what I'm calling it. Okay, in order to make this block, we have to assemble some units that we already have made. We made V blocks, and then we have our squares, our solid colored squares. So what we're going to do is get 26 of the V blocks that we've made and 13 of our 4.5 inch fabric B, which is your colored fabric, your printed fabric, and we're going to sew these together into units, and we need to make 13 of these units, okay? This is going to be the center row of our V-star block. Okay, so let's start on the next unit. All right, so we need to gather 68 of our 4 patches that we already made and 34 of the V blocks. All right, so this is how we're going to sew them together. We're going to sew a 4 patch, then a V block, then a 4 patch. Please pay attention to the direction of the 4 patch blocks. Notice how the dark colored squares are positioned in this unit. We need to make 34 of these units. Some of these units will be used in our 4 borders and then also in our V block star block, okay? So let's get to work and make 34 of these units. Okay, so now we have all of our units made. Now we're going to start assembling our V block star blocks. And we're going to need to assemble 13 of these. Now remember, you'll have some extra units, but those are going to be in our border. Okay, so let's look at our block. So notice the direction of the 4 patches, how they are laid out in our star block, okay? So pay attention and make sure that you have it laid out exactly as the diagram shows. Now let's go to the sewing machine and make 13 of these blocks. Okay, so now that we have our V block, star block made, let's start assembling our 4 borders. Okay, so our 4 borders, we're going to need 12 partial units from week 5, and then 8 of the 4 patch V blocks that we made today. Okay, so get those together and let's start laying them out. Okay, so here's the diagram from week 7 downloaded instructions. Don't worry about the center of the quilt. Right now, we are working on our 4 borders, okay? So look at the diagram and lay out your units that we have set aside exactly like the picture and sew them together, okay? So you'll make 4 units and then you should have 4 patches for the corners. So let's go to the sewing machine and make our 4 sides for our borders. Okay, so as you can see, breaking it down into small steps, it's very easy to make these blocks, okay? Just think of it as one step at a time. When you join your steps together, voila. Okay, so now we have our shoe fly block and our V star block and our borders all assembled. So now it's the fun part. We get to lay it out and see our beautiful quilt. Okay, let's keep it simple, guys. Don't be overwhelmed when you look at that diagram because it looks like a big old blur to me. I'm like, wow. Okay, let's look at it row by row, and we'll just do one row at a time. Okay, so look at our blocks. So we are going to need 3 rows using our 3 8-point star blocks and then 2 shoe fly blocks, okay? So you see that row at the top? We got our 8-point star, our shoe fly, 8-point, shoe fly, 8-point. Make 3 of those. So just get your blocks out, lay them out on the floor, and lay out 3 rows just like that, and then sew them together. Voila, you're done. Now let's do the other row, which is going to be our alternating row. We're going to do 2 of these rows. So we'll have the shoe fly first in this row, then our 8-point, then our shoe fly, then our 8-point, and then a shoe fly. Okay? And sew that together. You'll make 2 rows exactly like that. All right? So go to the sewing machine and sew your rows together. Okay, so now we have our rows all made. So now we're going to lay it out just like the diagram, okay? So pay attention. So our first row is going to be the 8-point star. Our second row, the first block will be the shoe fly. And it's going to alternate until we have all 5 of our rows, all right? So lay it out just like that and then sew your rows together. Okay, so what I did is I sewed 1 row together at a time to the next row, and I used my little clips to clip it so that whenever I got to an intersection of my units, I was making sure that I was nesting those seams. You need to make sure, so take your time and clip your rows together, nesting your seams as you go down the row, okay? You want to do that so that when it intersects, it makes that beautiful design. All right? So let's sew all of our rows together and see our beautiful quilts. All right, guys, so we have all of our rows sewn together and our quilt's really looking beautiful already, but we now need to add our 4 borders, okay? So the 4 patches, I need you to take 2 of those and sew them on the ends of 2 of your sides, okay? So you pick. It doesn't really matter. The quilt is perfectly square. So you'll sew 2 of the shorter borders on first onto the opposite sides of each other, and then the longer borders, which have the 4 patches on the end, you'll sew on next. All right, guys, so once you sew on your 4 borders, you are done. But if you're like me and you have fallen in love with this quilt and you're like, man, I really want that to fit my bed, so I need to add some more borders to it. Okay, so the first thing I did is I cut 3-inch width of fabric strips and I sewed it all the way around my quilt. Then I said, okay, it's getting bigger, but it's not quite big enough. So then to add more size to it, I cut 6.5-inch width of fabric strips in a reddish maroon colored fabric, and I sewed that all the way around, and it looked pretty good, but it was a little bit short on the end of the bed where you could see the foot of the mattress still, so I needed to add a little bit more fabric there. So what I did is I still had some of that red fabric left. I cut another width of fabric, 6.5 inches, strips, and I sewed them together, and then I sewed it to the end of the quilt. And that's what you see here. And I have to say, I love this quilt. It's so pretty. Thank you, National Quilter Circle. I love it. And with a little bit extra borders, I made it large enough to hang over and cover the mattress on a queen size bed. All right, guys. Well, thanks for following along with me. I had so much fun, and I look forward to our next quilt together. All right. Bye-bye.
Like and subscribe to Grandma's channel. Like and subscribe to Grandma's channel.